Spend a few minutes looking at AI videos on YouTube and you might come away thinking something extraordinary has already happened. AI is conscious. It has woken up. It's becoming a god. It could wipe us out. Apparently, we only have 12 months left before AI takes over, I guess. And these aren't obscure videos from channels nobody watches, such as mine. Although I shouldn't say that, I do have a few very loyal viewers, and thank you for that. But some of these channels get hundreds of thousands or even millions of views, often featuring respected scientists and researchers. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying the conversations themselves are nonsense. Far from it. Some of the people in these videos are serious researchers discussing genuinely important questions. Some make very strong claims, others are much more careful. What interests me is what happens between that conversation and the title and the thumbnail eventually presented to us. Because somewhere along the way, this is a possibility worth thinking about, has the tendency to become "this is happening." A prediction becomes a fact, a risk becomes an inevitability, a philosophical question becomes a scientific conclusion, and sometimes the person staring at you from the thumbnail never actually makes that claim that appears beside their face. Let me show you what I mean. Here we have Roman Yampolskiy on Danny Jones, Nick Bostrom on Alex Kantrowitz, Brian Greene on The Diary of a CEO, and Geoffrey Hinton again with Alex Kantrowitz. It just woke up. Out of control AI. AI will become a god by 2027. And AI is conscious. We have gone from waking up to losing control to consciousness to full-blown digital divinity remarkably quickly. And remember, I'm not making these claims up to make fun of people talking about AI on YouTube. These are the actual thumbnails and titles. And it keeps going. Roman Yampolskiy appears in a video from Decoded Genius, apparently saying that AI will kill humans, and he can prove it. Of course, again, I recommend that you watch the actual video. Then Geoffrey Hinton appears on Newsthink beside "They can easily crush us." And again, in a conversation from Sana, I see is the name of the channel, "We are creating beings, not tools." Finally, Alex Kantrowitz again talks with Michael Pollan under "Achieving AI Sentience." That's quite a journey. I'm not going to debunk every sentence in these videos. That's not the point. The point is what these titles and thumbnails ask you to believe before you've watched a second of them. And finally, Geoffrey Hinton again, Neural Nutshell gives us "we have 12 months." The Diary of a CEO goes with "they are hiding this." And Alex Kantrowitz went for "AI is just like us," alongside the title saying "AI is already conscious." Then we return to Roman Yampolskiy with Danny Jones for "Simulation, it's our God," on a video titled "AI just proved there is no God." So in 4 thumbnails, we've managed superintelligence, conspiracy, consciousness, simulation theory, and God. You can't accuse them of thinking small. So what do all these examples have in common? They take something uncertain and make it sound certain. A possibility becomes a prediction becomes something that will happen, for sure. A question about consciousness becomes AI is conscious. A discussion about risk becomes AI will kill humans. Those are very different claims. And the stronger the claim becomes, the more evidence we should expect to see behind it. Take consciousness, for example. We don't currently have evidence that demonstrates today's AI systems are conscious. In fact, we don't even have an agreed scientific explanation of consciousness itself, or a definitive test that could tell us whether an AI experiences anything at all. That doesn't mean machine consciousness is impossible. Of course not. It means we don't know, at least at this moment in time. And we don't know. It's very different from it just woke up. The same applies to predictions about AI taking over, killing us, becoming a god, or whatever comes next. Some very intelligent people genuinely believe these are serious risks, and their arguments are worth hearing. But a prediction is still a prediction. A probability is not an observation. And attaching a date to something doesn't suddenly turn speculation into a scheduled event. Otherwise, I'd quite like the exact time as well, so that I can put it in my calendar. There's another pattern I've noticed. Sometimes you click because the title or thumbnail appears to promise an extraordinary revelation, but the conversation itself is much more nuanced or barely addresses the specific claim at all. And sometimes the guest is actually far more careful than the words placed next to their face. That's an important distinction, because I don't want to attribute a claim to someone simply because somebody else put it on their thumbnail. And none of this started with YouTube. YouTube learned from the best. Mainstream media had been doing this for decades. At some point, even the weather became sensational. It couldn't simply rain anymore. You had to prepare for the heaviest rainfall in years, with up to 50 liters of water falling on every square meter, which sounds like the opening scene of a disaster movie. And then if you are actually curious enough to look at the numbers, you might discover that 45 liters per square meter would have been perfectly normal for the same period. But somehow, it's going to rain slightly more than normal doesn't have quite the same ring to it. And that's really the point. Sensationalism works because certainty, it's easy to understand. AI might become conscious under some definition of consciousness, although we don't currently know how it established that. It's really complicated. So instead, AI is conscious, fits nicely on a thumbnail. Nuance asks you to think. Certainty gives you a story immediately, even when the certainty itself isn't justified. AI is particularly vulnerable to this because it's moving quickly, it's complicated, and most people understandably don't have the time to investigate every claim they encounter. Even the experts disagree about fundamental questions. Add consciousness, superintelligence, extinction, and jobs into the mix, and you have pretty much everything you need for an endless supply of dramatic headlines. And I would never blame people for becoming worried about AI after seeing this stuff repeatedly. If respected scientists and researchers keep appearing next to AI is conscious, we have 12 months, they can easily crush us, and AI will kill humans. At some point, you could reasonably assume that something has actually been established. Most people aren't going to spend their evening checking the evidence behind every thumbnail, nor should they have to. The uncomfortable reality is that this kind of packaging works. Fear works. Certainty also works. Extreme predictions work. We don't currently have enough evidence to know, probably won't get 7 million views. And I understand the incentive. Everyone publishing online is competing for attention, including myself. But there's a difference between making an interesting question compelling and presenting an unanswered question as though we've already answered it. None of this means we shouldn't ask the big questions. Could the AI become conscious? Could systems become powerful enough that we struggle to control them? What happens to jobs? Could AI eventually pose an existential risk? Those are important questions, and some deserve to be taken very seriously. My problem isn't with asking the questions. It's when the question quietly disappears and the possibility gets presented as something we already know. And sometimes we don't know really is the best answer we have. That can feel unsatisfying, especially with something as important as AI. But uncertainty isn't a failure to take a position. If the evidence doesn't justify certainty, then uncertainty is the accurate position. We can have hypotheses, possibilities, and strong opinions even. We shouldn't confuse any of those with established facts. That doesn't mean talking about AI has to become boring. Quite the opposite. I find the unanswered questions much more interesting than pretending we've already solved them. We can explore whether a machine could ever experience anything, what intelligence actually means, or where increasingly capable systems might take us without announcing that the machine woke up last Tuesday and apparently nobody noticed. So the next time you see AI is conscious, we have 12 months, or whatever comes next, don't assume it's wrong, but don't assume it's true either. Ask what is actually being claimed, what evidence supports it, and whether the person in the thumbnail even said it. Because there's often quite a distance between an interesting conversation and the 4 words somebody eventually puts next to someone's face. And perhaps that is the part that I personally find most frustrating. AI, it's already extraordinary. There are real changes happening that are worth understanding, real risks worth discussing, and questions we genuinely don't know how to answer yet. We don't need to make any of that more dramatic by pretending speculation it's evidence or uncertainty it's certainty. AI, it's interesting enough already. We can afford to be honest about what we don't know. If you enjoyed this kind of video, please make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.